Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Dark Power on True Heels YouTube page. Before we get started, please remember to hit a like, subscribe. Thank you for sharing us with fellow wrestling fans, your friends, your family. We love to talk about wrestling. We love to share wrestling, and we appreciate that you guys are doing that with us. So once again, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and thank you for watching. So this week has some very crazy news that's happening. There's no way that we can't speak about it because it affects the 3 shows that we cover here on Dark Power. So without getting into too much detail, there have been a wave of allegations and truths coming to light due to the hashtag Speaking Out movement that is talking about certain horrible behaviors and horrific actions that have transpired within the world of professional wrestling. We like to consider ourselves one big happy family, but the truth is sometimes that there are bad actors within that family and that there are people who don't respect others. And that's something that we can't tolerate, right? We want everybody to be safe. We want everybody to be secure. When you're at an independent show, whether you're at a WWE show, an AEW show, regardless of where you are, regardless of whether you are a fan or a talent, because this is happening to talent. We want everybody to be safe and secure. You don't want to have harassment or assault or inappropriate behavior happening in your workplace, regardless of how the workplace is for these guys, right? Like, they are traveling sometimes together in cars, on the road, in buses, whatever the case may be, and that is an office environment, even though it may not appear that way. If you think about it, you are traveling, working with a coworker. You are not technically working in the sense of there's no crowd, there's no match happening, or there's not a meet and greet, but you are around a coworker. You are in a work environment, and there have been actions that are reprehensible and are shameful, to say the least. How this affects the shows that we cover here on Dark Power. There were allegations made against Dave Christ and Joey Ryan. Both of those performers have been, I was going to say gentlemen, but I don't know if I can really use that epithet to describe them. Those 2 performers, we'll say, have been released from their contracts with Impact Wrestling. Now, I don't know whether or not they were supposed to be on tonight's show because how the tapings work. They were on previous episodes, so maybe they were going to get tonight off in that sense. However, they are not here. So I don't know if there was some editing that happened. Maybe there wasn't, and we'll see next week that there was for next week's episode. However, they are not present. I will say that it's kind of ironic that Joey Ryan, who is part of a group, or the leader of a group called Cancel Culture, and was about the cancel culture, is himself now finding himself canceled due to his own stupidity, his own insensitivity, and his own bad, just horrible actions. He had to close down his his independent wrestling promotion, Powerrr Wrestling, as well he should. He also deleted his Twitter. It's a whole rabbit hole of bad behavior that is now coming to light, and it's difficult for the companies to properly navigate the roads of what they're supposed to be doing, because they have to do something. They have to be able to suspend with or without pay, however they want to decide it, or fire people while they conduct investigations, right? And that's something that they can't. If it were me, I'm not going to have somebody continue to be coming into the building while I'm doing an investigation against them. And I'm just not going to, other people aren't going to be able to feel comfortable, feel safe with that. And even more so when it's somebody who is in an authority figure in management. And that's where we look at what happened with NWA. Dave Lagana had allegations made against him, and in response to them, he just straight up resigned from the NWA. I don't think Billy Corgan fired him. I don't think there was anything to that effect. It was just he knew it was time for him to get out of the building, because if he didn't, something was going to happen to him legally when it comes to his employment. So because of that, part of that is with the statement that the NWA made is that they were not going to be airing any more content until they had a look at whatever it is they wanted to have a look at. So for that reason, there is no episode of Carneyland this week. And I gotta say, it took me a few moments when 5 o'clock rolled around, and I was thinking to myself, looking at my phone, like, why is it not popping up, right? Why am I not seeing that? And then I have to remind myself, no, it's because of what happened. We really do try to consider ourselves a family, but we have to weed out the people who don't know how to behave themselves. Actually, no, so a lot of these people do know how to behave themselves. They choose not to behave themselves. That's a better way to put it. I can kind of forgive somebody if they don't know right from wrong, right? That's a situation where they don't know any better. But when you do know better, and that's something that every adult should, at this point of their lives, know better, and you choose to do something wrong, that's a completely different story. But moving on to bigger and better things, we are going to get through tonight's episodes of AEW Dark and Impact Wrestling. Starting us off on AEW Dark is Brian Cage versus Robert Anthony. Now, this is a very quick squash match, and it's kind of cool because if you remember, Robert Anthony is the guy who faced Jon Moxley, the world champion, in the main event of Dark not too long ago. And in that match, it went a little bit longer than maybe Moxley wanted to, right? He was starting to have a little bit of a difficult time putting Robert Anthony away. But that's not something that happened with Brian Cage. Brian Cage beat that man silly. And this is a great way of getting over storylines without really having to have interactions between the two people involved in the storyline. Brian Cage can now, or Taz, speaking for Brian Cage, can now talk about how Brian Cage did not have a problem facing Robert Anthony, but Moxley did. And the two men don't touch, right? The entire time, there's no physical interaction between the two of them. You are continuing, even if you do have some kind of contact between them, because in this case we have, right? Moxley and Cage had that little bit of a brawl. But there is no moment where we're getting full, like, honest-to-God, match-level, full-fledged contact between these two, but they're using other people as stand-ins. And sucks for Robert Anthony, but hey, somebody had to take the pin, right? After this, we have SCU versus Ali and Musa, and a quick tag match, just keeping SCU in the mix. Again, interesting to note that it is Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels, not Kazarian and Sky. So there's a wonder there whether or not it's starting to maybe move Scorpio into more of a singles competition role for SCU. That'll be interesting to see. I don't know if Daniels can still go, but he is starting to slow down. I will say that. You can see it more and more as his matches happen. Like as he continues to get back in the ring more and more, you see that his mind is definitely still one of the best in wrestling. But his body is starting to slow down. And that's why he's more of a backstage role even at this point now. After this, we have a quality match between Shawn Spears and Pineapple Pete. This is a match that's reinforcing the black glove that Shawn Spears received from Tully Blanchard. What's kind of interesting to note about this match, little unique levels of storytelling, is that at one point, Ref Aubrey tries to check the glove. She tries to check, she feels it, to make sure that there's nothing in there, because he keeps going after Pete with the gloved hand. Now, later in the match, Tully distracts the ref. He slides something into the ring for Shawn. Then he distracts the ref, and we see it's some kind of metal plate or metal object that Shawn slides into the glove and uses to bash Pineapple Pete and get the pin. What's interesting is that there's no reason for Ref Aubrey to check the glove again, because in her mind she's already checked it and there was no foreign object in there. So it's a little bit of nice storytelling happening within the context of what is essentially a dark match. And so it was one of the things that I kind of liked, is that they still used it to progress overall storyline. Something that's not progressing storyline, but is progressing character, is the next match: Griff Garrison versus Lance Archer. Lance Archer again. I will keep repeating it because I shouldn't, because I know they're going to keep doing it. But Lance Archer again comes out, knocking somebody up, beating them up, and getting them into the ring before he starts his match. This is a squash match the same as the Brian Cage-Robert Anthony match. It just happens to go a little bit longer. I'm not expecting Griff Garrison to be able to pull off a win against Lance Archer, and he's not going to. He's just that simple. After this, we have a really competitive match between signed AEW talent and signed AEW talent. We have the Dark Order 3 and 4, Reynolds and Silver, versus Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela. Kiss and Janela are going to pick up the win ahead of their match on Dynamite on Wednesday against Boom Boom Colt Cabana, potential new member of the Dark Order, and Mr. Brody Lee. So here they got to get a win over Dark Order members so that tomorrow when they fall, it means something. It's classic wrestling. And that's something that makes this match kind of great. The idea of we are here to see what Kiss and Janela can do in the ring together. And that's something that's important. That's something that we've talked about a lot, is how they're going to be able to put these guys together and get them in a position where they are effective. And that's something that does well here. Speaking of getting people effective, they have to kind of rehab some of the heel characters that they have in the women's division. That includes Mel. If you don't remember, Mel was somebody who was brought in to be part of the Nightmare Collective when Brandy was trying to build her own stable. When the Nightmare Collective got dropped, Mel kind of just got lost in the shuffle, and we didn't see her for some time. But now she's got a match here again against Kylan King. She's going to pick up that win over Kylan King, starting to build up more heels, which is important because we have Hikaru Shida, a face champion, who will be facing, arguably right now, the top heel, the top female heel in AEW, in Penelope Ford during Fyter Fest. So they have some time to maybe get some wins, stack some wins under Mel, get her back into the mix, whether it's on Dark, Dynamite, a combination of both, to get her prepped so that down the road she might be somebody who can face Hikaru Shida for that title, because I'm not thinking that Shida's going to drop that title to Penelope Ford. After this, we have Scorpio Sky from SCU, who faces Lee Johnson. This is a really good match. I like this one. It was one of my more favorite matches of the night. Scorpio picks up the win. After this, we've got Jurassic Express versus Luther Serpentico and Max Caster. This is a thrown together six-man tag match. I see zero reason why one side of the ring of the match is there, but I know why the other side's there. Jurassic Express is picking up a solid win, keeping their tag team activities alive, and keeping Marco Stunt in the winning column, and who doesn't like that when somebody's fun-sized, right? And finally, in our main event, we have none other than Peter Avalon taking a pinfall loss to the baddest man on the planet in Orange Cassidy. Building up Orange Cassidy just a little bit further, stacking another win as he heads into his match against Chris Jericho at Fyter Fest. Solid work there, giving Orange Cassidy a nice main event spot. One thing I will say about Dark that is starting to kind of get on my nerves when it comes to Dark plus BTE is that they only have a certain number of indie people to use. As those indie people accrue loss after loss after loss after loss, beating them starts to lose its luster. More importantly than that, I am less interested in the Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon storyline. It hit me today when I was watching BTE, which came out today as opposed to normally on Monday, when you have Cutler talking to Avalon about their losing streaks. Okay, yeah, they're like 0-13, 0-14, but Lee Johnson is like 0-6. Musa and David Ali, they're also like 0-4, 0-6, 0-7. All these guys are taking losses, and I don't see why I should care as much about the fact that Avalon and Cutler are experiencing such setbacks. Other people are experiencing it a lot more. It's that kind of a storyline has more impact, no pun intended, towards what we will be talking about when it comes to having somebody overcome the schneid, get over the schneid, get that first win when they are the only people who are experiencing losses. If there's a large number of people who do not have any wins whatsoever, then why do I care about the fact that Avalon and Cutler do? That's something that we'll have to hopefully get over down the road. But moving on to Impact, we have a pretty good Impact card today. It was starting off with Tasha Steelz versus Nevaeh. Tasha Steelz picks up the win when Kiera Hogan does a little bit of distraction, causing a nice roll-up, pull the tights, classic heel move. Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan, who have been talking smack with Nevaeh and Jessica Havoc for a couple weeks now. Heels picking up a win. We are down the road in this episode going to find out that next week we get the flip side, Kiera Hogan versus Jessica Havoc. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets some kind of maybe tag team match at Slammiversary. Slammiversary isn't too far away. As we will be told repeatedly throughout this episode, Josh Matthews says it's 25 nights away. So it's not 3 weeks. It's not a long amount of time, especially when you consider next week we're going to have Kiera Hogan versus Jessica Havoc. You take them, then maybe the week after that, you give them the week off. And then the last week, before we go into Slammiversary, you do something that sets up a tag team match. I could see it happen. After this, there's a promo video for Deonna Purrazzo, Jordynne Grace, covering the issues that happened between them when Deonna Purrazzo went on Busted Open, and then Jordynne Grace called in, and they got into a bit of an argument. Further, we have the North backstage. They are... Ethan Page is talking about how great the North are and then starts to run down Ken Shamrock. They do the classic, the face comes up behind the heel, right? So he's facing Alexander, talking all this shit to Shamrock. Doesn't realize that Shamrock is now standing right behind him. And Shamrock is going to challenge Ethan Page, but Josh Alexander says, no, I'll take this one, boy. I'll take the match instead of letting Ethan get into this match. And we will have that down the road tonight. Ken Shamrock in action. Further, we have Moose backstage talking about how he is the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, further disrespecting Tessa Blanchard and her title that she holds. And who comes to not the defense of Tessa, but the explanation of Moose has lost his mind? None other than Crazy Steve. If a crazy guy is telling you that you're crazy, quacks like a duck, I'm just saying. But because of that, next week we are going to have Moose versus Crazy Steve for the the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. After this, we have Deonna Purrazzo versus Alicia. They had a segment backstage where Deonna was talking about the interview that happened on Busted Open, and Alicia came up. There was a bit of jaw-jacking between the two of them. Now we get Deonna Purrazzo versus Alicia. Purrazzo picks up a very quick win. And after this, Jordynne Grace runs out and, tries to get the hands, put the mitts on old Deonna, but the Virtuosa, being the Virtuosa, is able to get out in time and, says, we do things on my terms, not on your terms. And Jordynne Grace is like, but I'm the champion. What are you talking about? After this, they are going to start the Shamrock Josh Alexander match, but out of nowhere, Josh Alexander and Ethan Page attack Ken Shamrock while he's coming down during his entrance, and there's no match, unfortunately. After this, there is, I think, one of the longest matches of the night, or second longest matches of the night, Taya Valkyrie versus Susie. Pretty good match. Taya is one of the better women on the roster. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they signed Deonna Purrazzo. It would probably go, to me at least, Jordan, Taya, Kylie, other people. That would be like my top three in Impact when it comes to in-ring work. Tasha Steelz is somebody that's climbing up those charts over there, though we saw her do wonderful things on NWA Powerrr. But this is a quality match in that Taya knows what she's doing in the ring, and she kind of can carry a match. It's interesting because she is able to play to the camera as opposed to playing to the crowd. She's going to be able to tell the difference. We've spoken about people who are a little too loud, not knowing where they are, or not knowing that there's no crowds right now. But that doesn't happen for Taya. She's able to roll with the punches, so to speak. Now, throughout the episode of Impact, Johnny Swinger has been trying to find a third team member for him and Chris Bay to team up with against the Deaners and Willie Mack, a current X Division champion. As you can expect, almost every single time, all the people that he's talked to they want nothing to do with him. And I don't really blame him. Have you seen Johnny Swinger? Have you heard the way he talks? Okay, I won't lie. The way he talks is hilarious. That is actually hilarious. But the character is funny, I will say that. But he's having a difficult time, regardless of how he speaks and how he dresses, he's having a difficult time trying to get a partner. So it's kind of saying, who's it going to be? Chris Bay saying, okay, all right, who is this partner? And it turns out that it's none other than Rohit Raju. And Chris Bay, to say the least, is not impressed. But the three of them, working together, their powers combined, find a way to pick up a win over the Deaners and Willie Mack, which ends with Chris Bay pinning Willie Mack for the win. So, as Josh Matthew then posits, do we think that Chris Bay is going to be able to get an X Division Championship match down the road? I think the answer is yes. I think we are looking at our Slammiversary X Division title match, something that involves Chris Bay and Willie Mack. There might be other people involved, but I know that definitely those two are going to be involved in some kind of match. It's something that they've been building towards. After this, we have our main event. So, last week we found out that it was none other than Madman Fulton who is behind the attacks on Trey. Acting on Ace Austin's orders, but it's definitely Madman Fulton who is the one carrying out the attacks. And he got involved last week and attacked Eddie Edwards. So now Eddie Edwards is trying to face Madman Fulton. This match goes the way you think it should, and it goes the right way. Eddie Edwards takes the pinfall loss to Madman Fulton. If they do, down the road, put the title on Eddie Edwards over Ace Austin, I feel like it should go to Ace the way he's been carrying the Impact while Tessa has been out. I mean, it depends on whether or not Tessa... I guess if Tessa's able to come back for the pay-per-view itself, it stands to reason that she has travel access to the United States, so I suppose they could have a situation where she doesn't lose and does maybe like a unification match with Moose first. But if Eddie Edwards does get the title down the road, they have a situation where Madman Fulton can always say, I pinned him. And that's important. And they're also building up the fact that Eddie Edwards may go into that world title match at Slammiversary hurt. Because that's what Madman Fulton does to people. He hurts people. Puts the hurt on pretty damn bad. That's what he did to Trey. Knocked him out of the world title out of the tournament. That's what he did to Trey the next week. That's what he did to Eddie Edwards at the end of last week. That's what he's doing to Eddie Edwards in this main event. Madman Fulton picking up a really important win, I think, for him. However, the focus is and should be on Ace Austin. And Ace Austin does really great work being the guy ringside. Gets involved where he needs to get involved. Makes his presence felt where it needs to be felt, but besides that, Ace knows what he's doing, and I think that Ace versus Tessa is something that'll be really good to see down the road. I think Ace Austin is definitely a future world champion for Impact. I don't know how long his contract is. That's something I do want to look into and see if I can find out when he signed his contract with Impact Wrestling. But that'll be a conversation for another time, for another week, maybe next week. But until then, guys, we had a great episode of Impact. They moved storylines along. They had important conversations with the women's champion and Deonna Purrazzo. They built up Tasha Steelz, Kiera Hogan with Havoc and Nevaeh. They continued Moose's kind of insanity. They're showing that the North are the North, and who is going to be the ones to take those tag titles from them? Maybe it's Shamrock and a partner of his choosing. Who knows? But they moved storylines along, and that's something that I like to see. And that's something they also did on AEW Dark. And so, on that note, guys, we're going to head on out of here. But first, but not last. But first. Well, no, it is last. Last but not least. Least but not last. Gosh. We have Devon, Bully Ray, Gallows, D'Lo Brown. These are all names we know, but we know them more importantly from the Aces and Eights. At the time when Impact does a flashback bit where they show old content. And part of it was a long segment that bothered me. Part of why it bothered me was a long segment. And it was kind of annoying because I actually kind of liked the beginnings, at least the beginnings of the Aces and Eights storyline. I thought it was something interesting. I thought the aspect of the clubhouse and these guys are going to have this lethal lockdown match, and if they win, they have unlimited access to the Impact Zone. I thought it was kind of interesting, and how Bully Ray turned and showed that he was actually the president of the Aces and Eight. I thought that was really great storytelling, really great work. Where it went, not too big of a fan of. But earlier in the episode, they have D'Lo Brown sitting backstage on his computer, clickety-clackety, clackety-clicketing, and Reno Scum comes up to make fun of him. Followed by TJP show up, and they say, we don't appreciate how you guys last week told Wentz and the rest of the Rascals that it was us who attacked Trey. We don't do things behind our back. We say things to your face. Okay. So they're setting up a match between Reno Scum, followed by TJP for next week. But more importantly, the end clip or stinger of this week's episode of Impact, his D'Lo Brown on the phone with somebody talking about them coming back, and he doesn't like being the company's stooge. And when he gets up, the hoodie that he was wearing was Impact, but behind him, lying on the chair, is his old Aces and Eights cut, and they play like that ding 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 of the Aces and Eights theme music. I promise to never try to do the Aces and Eights theme music again. I know you hated it, but I thought that was kind of interesting because one of the peoples that WWE released, Luke Gallows, who was Doc Gallows in Aces and Eights. So, are they going to bring Gallows and Anderson in? And maybe Machine Gun Carl Anderson is a new member of the Aces and Eights, and that's something that they're going to do, like bring back the Aces and Eights? Who knows? It'll be interesting to see. But we will see. Maybe Slammiversary, that might be one or more of the people who come in that used to be with WWE. But until then, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the reviews. Again, hit the like, subscribe button, drop a comment. So I know sometimes we make the videos with comments, sometimes we do not. If you are on our Facebook group, feel free to reach out and talk about Dark Power there. I'm more than happy to talk to you guys. More than happy to connect with all of you. Until next time, I'll catch you later.